let's actually see if we can not just have fun here and get some stuff done. So did you guys see this? Who didn't see this, by the way? I'm just curious if everybody saw it. So everybody saw it? Okay, great. So this is, you know, there's a lot that we can talk about today. One of the things that we could talk about today is just, you know, how to be efficient as an entrepreneur, because time is your enemy when you're an entrepreneur. You just do not have enough time to get everything done. And one of the skills that I've really picked up is trying to be asynchronous in addition to being synchronous. You know, we tend to live a very synchronous life, right? It's like whatever we're doing, wherever we are, that's what we're doing, whatever's in front of us. But if you can really kind of pull a little bit of asynchronicity into your life, it can help you be a lot more efficient. So like, for example, I said to Dave, I said, let me get an idea of what everybody wants to talk about before we sit down so that we don't have to spend the first part of our time figuring out what we're going to talk about. That also helps you guys get some background on, you know, on ShareThis and on what I've been up to. Help, you know, jog your kind of thought process about what you'd like to know and what I can speak to. So one tool that I use is called HackPad. Had anybody used HackPad before? I'm just curious if anybody knew about it. So HackPad is actually based on an open standard called Etherpad, which is a collaborative document. So it's kind of similar to Google Docs, but it's I like it better. One of the reasons is I can see who wrote what, for example. So we use HackPad extensively through our company. For example, we're doing a vendor selection right now. I gave each vendor a HackPad doc. I made a HackPad doc for each vendor, and I asked them to answer questions in the doc. That way, they can answer questions. My product team can go see what the answers are, and they can ask more questions and have an asynchronous dialogue to help us pick vendors, stuff like that. So in HackPad, this is a document that you guys can edit as well. So what I'd like to do before we start is I want to just make sure that you guys all have access to HackPad, like right now in this meeting, so that you can take notes as I talk with anything that you think is worth writing down. So if you guys can just go to DROdio.hackpad.com, which is this URL here. There's also a HackPad app. If you want to really be crazy about it, you can install that HackPad app. But just take a minute to open HackPad up on your phones, and I'll do it with you.
The App Store.
Kind of see how it goes. So DROdio.hackpad.com, and I'm logged in, so I see McIntire visit to ShareThis as one of the first things here. If you're not logged in, you'll have to log in. If you don't remember your login credentials, it might take a minute to figure out. But when I click on McIntire visit, I can actually see this document on my phone pretty well. You got it? All right, great. So there's a notes section here. And I'd like, when you get into this document, I'd like you to just type hello world or something, right? Hello world. So that I can see that everybody is actually in here and successfully typing. Be having a Wi-Fi issue, so let's see.
How can I search for that?
There we go. We got Brian on. So you can see that Tom's in. Awesome. What else do we have? Joe, sweet. If anybody's having problems, just tell me and I'll help you. Yep.
Actually, I don't know how to access to the McIntire repetition.
Let me see what you got. So go ahead and...
Yeah, I just installed it.
Interesting. So you're using... Let's see. So you installed the app, which is awesome. So you're on the regular hackpad.com space. So I'm going to add a space. And I'm just going to try, I've never tried this before, but we'll see if it works. I'm going to try adding DROdio.hackpad.com. We'll see if that works. So now in DROdio, I'm going to try McIntire. Just going to try searching. There it is. I searched for McIntire visit to share this. There you go. Yep. So the cool thing about Hackpad is, you know, I can say, like, I can see that Tom wrote this, and I can be like, hey Tom, so you're a developer then? I didn't know that you knew how to do a hello world. What language? Right? And then Tom could write back. So who's Tom? All right, okay, that Tom. Yeah, so you just, we could just have a conversation here. So just go ahead and keep doing it. It looks like most of you are in, so I'm going to move on from this. But Hackpad is a great tool. And as I'm talking, feel free to just put notes in here. I'll just move these down a little bit. So let me tell you, let's just get an agenda going for today. So agenda. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and my background. And then we've got some questions below, right, that we can talk through. You can look at those questions. You can add to them if you'd like. What else do you guys want to talk about today? My background, questions below. I could also tell you about some efficiency tips. There's a lot that I do that just like save literally seconds a day. So like in everything that I do, I'd be happy to share some of those tips with you.
Yeah,
you guys want that? Okay, go ahead.
I'd be interested in hearing more about how you're saying you're at risk of losing your brand or.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yep.
Company's business model.
Okay. Yep. I'd be happy to. One of the things that I can do is show you a ShareThis core pitch. So that's probably how I'll do that. All right. What else?
Getting steps to getting the startup off the ground. Once you have the idea, where you go from there.
So that was a similar one to down here. Let's see. I'm just going to pull some of these questions up here into the agenda. Can you guys help me do this? Just pull, actually, if you guys could do this, just pull the questions that are down here and put them up into the agenda up here. Might be a little hard on your phones to copy and paste, but give that a shot. And we'll keep talking about what we'll talk about. What else? Yep.
Maybe just more about like the leadership and team here. I was looking on the website and it looks like you guys have a really accomplished team that came from different companies in this area, and so how that kind of comes together and ShareThis.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll add a little bit to that. Leadership structure and beliefs. What else?
So you created Socialize and Socialize based upon ShareThis,
Yep.
right? So how is Socialize get integrated into ShareThis?
Okay.
And how is the transition through?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because acquisitions are hard. Okay. All right, I think that's good. Just if you get, great, Joe, thank you for putting one in. If you guys can just keep putting these questions from below up here. Let's just go over the order in which we're going to talk about these. So we have to just go over this first. I'll do this briefly. We'll put efficiency tips kind of towards the end. So I'll do this down here. Is there anything different than this order that you guys want to talk about stuff in? And then we'll get started. So we'll talk about the ShareThis company business model after that. Okay, cool. So, and please keep putting the questions from below up here because this is where we'll address them. All right, guys, so I'm Daniel. I'm McIntire 98. It sounds like you met my brother Sam. He's the CEO of Fresh Plum. It's awesome. We both went to Thomas Jefferson High School in Alexandria. We both went to U.Va. There's probably some TJ kids in here. Is that true? Did any of you guys go to TJ? Yeah. Really? Oh, everyone talks about it? That's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah, maybe TJ's not sending people to UVA anymore.
We won't accept them anymore.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
No.
They're just not smart enough to get into the business school. That's the thing. Right? Yeah. So yeah, I went to work for GE after college. I'll just pull up a quick bio link here. I went to work for GE after college. I worked for GE in their technical leadership program, which is a management fast track program. Realized that I did not want to be at a big company. I had to pay for everything myself when I was in college, so I did a bunch of things in school that were very entrepreneurial. I almost got kicked out of U.Va for being entrepreneurial, which I can tell you guys about if you want to hear about it. And then I went to work for GE. I realized I didn't want to really do that, so I quit. And I did some things on my own. I started a real estate company, which I sold, and then the iPhone came out, and I realized that the iPhone was going to be a really big deal. A lot of people didn't think it was going to be a really big deal. So we created a startup called PointAbout, which made apps. We built the Washington Post iPhone app. We built the Cars.com app. We built apps for Disney and lots of other big brands. And and then we created an app creation platform called AppMaker. AppMaker launched in 2010, and it was a way for anybody to make an app. Let me just make sure this thing is recording. Yeah, it is. Cool. So this was our first product platform called AppMaker, and we came out to Silicon Valley when this thing took off. We didn't know if it was going to be successful or not, but it got a lot of traction. So we realized we had to be out west in order to really make something of it. And from building AppMaker, we realized that engagement in apps is very low. And what I mean when I say that is, if you're like me and you have a smartphone, like I think probably all of us do, which is interesting because 4 years ago none of us did, really, except for Blackberries, which hardly count. But if you're like me, you probably have, 50, 100 apps on your phone, and maybe you use 5 of them on a regular basis, maybe 10. So there's, 90+% of the apps on your phone never get opened. That's an engagement problem. And we realized that there was a huge engagement problem in mobile apps. And the thing that we realized was also crazy is that when you download an app, you're not the only person to download that app. There might be a million other people that have downloaded the same app. But typically, you don't know who any of them are. It's like everybody's in a room with the lights off. I mean, how crazy is that? You download an app about sailing, for example. You don't know who everybody else is who's downloaded that same app. And we thought that was crazy. Like, why not turn the lights on and let that interest-based group socialize with each other? And so we created Socialize, which was a drop-in social platform that allowed app developers to make their app more social. And then ShareThis saw that a lot of its traffic was coming from social, and they said, or from mobile, and they said, we don't have a good solution for this. So they acquired Socialize so that Socialize could power the social actions in mobile apps. And so that's how we became a part of ShareThis. So that's my story, my background. I'll be happy to tell you a little bit more about ShareThis, but before I do, just tell me if there's anything that you guys want to ask about in terms of my background or anything there. Yeah.
Just a quick question with AppMaker. It says like SSS is like no coding required. If you make an app on there, can you like export the code and
That's a good question. So we sold AppMaker. So when we were running AppMaker, the answer was yes, you could. Although we made it a business decision, so it was technically possible. But from a business perspective, we didn't let people do it unless we worked it out with them on a custom basis. So that was a more expensive engagement that we had with them. So we had kind of a professional version of AppMaker where you could use AppMaker to build a fully native binary, which is like the software, and then download that to be able to modify it. But the company that bought AppMaker, I don't believe they offer that anymore. So I think they're really going for just the self-serve market. Yep. Yeah.
I'm actually interested that while in college, many of us at 30 years, I'm really interested to hear what you did in college entrepreneurially-wise and how that set you up for what you did.
Sure, yeah. Let me see if I can find a couple of these things and I can put them into. So I've got a blog, I really blog a lot, and you guys probably noticed that because I put a bunch of links of my blog into that Hackpad doc. So I really try to like share knowledge and so a lot of the content that I'm going to share with you is in the blog, and I'll try to put links to the blog when I find stuff. I'm not sure that I'll be able to find anything, but let me just see if so this is good. So when I was in college, for example, I made UVA branded Frisbees, and then I sold them at Mincer's and the UVA bookstore. That was, I don't know if anyone's doing that today, but that's part of how I paid for college. my dad is an immigrant from Costa Rica. I didn't grow up with a ton of cash, so my dad said, "You want to go to college? That's great. You're gonna have to pay for all of it." And so I had to find ways to do that. So I bartended at the Biltmore. Is the Biltmore still there?
Yeah.
I was at the Biltmore. There's a Chili's on Route 29 where I waited tables. I made frisbees. I also made with another guy this thing called the Who's Savings Club card, which is basically an analog Groupon. So I basically went around to a bunch of different stores and said, "Hey, I'd like to get more UVA students to come into your store." They said, "That sounds great." I said, "In order to do that, I'm going to need you to give anybody who walks in with this card a discount." And they said, "Okay, we're willing to do that. We'll give 10% off or whatever it is in exchange for getting more volume, more people to come in." So I got basically agreements for the semester, right? This card was only valid for one semester. And like Kroger, I don't know, is Kroger still there? Kroger, yeah. Kroger was giving 10% off. Chesapeake Bagel Bakery, Boston Market, just I got discounts from all these guys. And then I made these cards which cost like 5 cents each to make, and I sold them for $20. So I would literally be sitting out in front of Kroger. The manager let me put a card table up with these cards, and I would be, and as people were walking in, I'd say, "Hey, you can get 10% off today. That's going to pay for the cost of this card if you just go 10 times, right? And you get $2 off $20 purchase. If you just do that 10 times, you're going to make up that $20 that you're spending on this card." Are you going to go to Kroger 10 times and buy $20 worth of stuff in the next semester? Probably, right? So save money with this card. And literally, we sold tens of thousands of dollars of these cards. It was a pretty easy sale. You guys could do this today. I don't think anyone's doing anything like this. I don't think anyone's done anything like this since 1998 when I graduated.
They
So,
have like the Alumni Association,
Yeah.
the student life member cards.
and there's like discounts on the back. Okay, so maybe you couldn't. I don't know, but that's what we did back then. So it was called the Who's Savings Club. But this is the thing about like which of you want to be an entrepreneur? Like, raise your hand if you want to be an entrepreneur. So like half of you maybe. So the thing about being an entrepreneur is you have to be willing to embarrass yourself. You have to want it so badly that you're willing to make a fool out of yourself and you don't care. And you really just don't care. So part of that is seeing a need and then just trying something, right? Like, we saw the need. Every other student could have done this, but none of them did, right? So a lot of it is just in seeing the need. If you really want to be an entrepreneur, I actually have this, so I'll put this blog into here, right? So this is Who's Savings Club card, all right? So I've got this blog about how to, like a litmus test. Let me see if I can find it. Litmus test for being an entrepreneur. Yeah, this one here. So if you guys really think you want to be entrepreneurs, then do this. Go to Costco. You know how you can get those these things at Costco where you get Morton's $100 gift ticket for $80 or whatever. Like this is for a museum. It's like $20, but the admission actually costs more than that. Buy a couple of these and then stand out in front of the museum and try to make part of that margin, right? So like if it's $17.99 but the regular admission is $25, see if you can sell a ticket for $20, right? You make $2 on each one. Embarrass yourself. Go stand out front and do it. So I'll tell you something. I've told every McIntire class that's come about this. I don't think any student has ever done it. I went to TJ and I gave the same kind of just talk like what I'm doing now, and 3 high school kids did it. So there's something about entrepreneurism where you have to start young. It's by the time you guys are your age, you're like, nah, I'm way too busy to do something like this, But it's so valuable to make yourself go do it and experience that feeling of trying to convince somebody. They're like, why am I going to buy it from you? I don't know if that's a real ticket. I don't trust you, right? I mean, you have to get past all of that when you do stuff like this. It's really valuable. The manager might try to kick you off the property. You have to talk that manager into letting you stay. Stuff like that. Super easy litmus test. Anybody who says they want to be an entrepreneur, I say, oh, really? Do you really? Go try this. Because if you can't do this, there's no way that you can do the stuff that comes after this. This is like step number 1 on a 1,000-step mountain that you have to climb. So this is a great place to start. So I don't know if that answers, I don't know whose question. Oh, also I saw getting kicked out. So yeah, the way I almost got kicked out of school, I don't know if I have this here. Let me just look. I may or may not have this up. Yeah, I don't think I do. So basically, when I was in college, I was an RA at Brown College. I don't know if you guys sort of like right next to McIntire. So I had like a suite set up. You get both rooms when you're an RA, so that was pretty cool. So, but also, I was on school property, and I had this idea that I was going to take the phone book, which then was a printed phone book. I don't know if they still print phone books at UVA. Hopefully not. Do they really?
6 months after.
Oh yeah, really? Okay. So like my email address at UVA was like DRO9J. Like, is UVA still doing like the 5 characters? I don't know why they're doing that, but I had like, there's like what, 15,000 students at UVA or something like that, like 12,000, I don't know. So I actually, over the winter break, I typed each one of those email addresses into a flat file directory. So I was the only person at UVA that had every single student's email address. And then I went to the local businesses that I knew from the Who Savings Code card, and I said, I'm going to make something called the AdGram. It's going to be a once-a-month email where you, the business, have to give a discount to the student. I'm going to email it out to, this is before spam existed, right? This is like way back when. I'm going to email it to every single student. I'm the only one that can reach every single student. But I'm going to charge you $500 per placement. I'm only going to put 3 in each email. So I'm going to make $1,500 for each email I send out. But you have to give a really good discount to students. Well, UVA got super pissed, and they brought me up on UJC charges for using school property to make money. They were upset. It was my computer, but because I was living in Brown College, they tried to kick me out of school for using school property to make money, because they said it was their internet cable that was connecting my private computer to the public internet. Now, obviously, I mean, I was also spamming students, right? This is before spamming was such a bad thing. But yeah, that didn't sit well with me. But I didn't get kicked out. Got through that. Yeah, being an entrepreneur, you tend to push the boundary a little bit. We do that. I think I was the only student to plead guilty, because I was like, yeah, I did it, and not get kicked out. Anyway, so that was my entrepreneurship story. That's why I'm so excited that like I'm hearing things about how McIntire is much more entrepreneur friendly right now. I think that's awesome. I don't know the specifics, but is there like an entrepreneurship track now, or classes, or yeah, that's fantastic. That's awesome. Like, it really was not a conducive environment to being an entrepreneur when I was there. It's great to hear that that's changing. Okay, what other questions do you guys have? Tell me more about. We got through this one. You guys want to talk about the TM a little bit? I'll just include that in with the ShareThis business model. So let me show you guys the core pitch a little bit. So, let's see if we can get this up. Okay, so this is the deck that we show to advertisers. ShareThis was the #1 fastest growing company in Silicon Valley this year. We went from $500,000 of revenue to over $30 million of revenue in 2 years, so a lot of growth. So the question is, how do you do that with a widget? And here's how we do it with a widget. So, we have a lot of publishers that use our sharing widget, and that's what you see here, right? So I'm assuming, have you guys kind of experienced this flow? Like, it's not foreign to you, the idea you read some content and you want to share it, like I was saying earlier in the other room, right? So what we do is, let's see if I've got a good kind of spot where I can show this to you. We show ads to people based on their sharing activity. So, for example, we've got this awesome guy, Mark, who shares some content. We then cookie that user, like I was telling you earlier, so we know a little bit about that user's interests. Then we go to an advertiser, in this case it's Clorox, and we say, hey Clorox, we can find you people who have an interest in, cleaning topics or whatever it is. I don't know what it was about this content that made a Clorox ad relevant, but there might have been some content on this page. We actually do what's called NLP. Does anybody know what NLP stands for? I don't expect that you would.
Natural language processing.
Natural language processing, yeah, exactly. So we do natural language processing to understand the context of this page. We create a taxonomy, just meaning that we categorize those interests, those cookies that we drop on those users. We say, Mark is interested in cleaning supplies. Mark is interested in automobiles. Mark is interested in, whatever those things are. And then we can create an audience of people that have a higher than average propensity to click on these ads because they're more relevant, because they're based on their interests, right? So Clorox is like, yeah, I would much rather show an ad to somebody who cares about, cleaning than a random person because it's going to be more relevant to them. They're going to be more likely to click on it. They're going to be more likely to buy my product. So this is what's called the kind of the the purchase intent funnel. There's DR. Does anybody know what DR stands for? DR is direct response, which is basically like very intent based. For example, Google AdWords. You guys know AdWords, right? Like we've all used Google. So that's very intent based. When I'm searching for the term Clorox, I'm much more likely to want to buy something around that term. Or when I'm searching for the word, the phrase buy a car or Toyota. So that's intent based. You go up the funnel and you get to kind of this larger interest base where I might not be buying right now, but I have an interest in that topic. And that's where we live. We are not down in the AdWords ready to take action. We're up in the interest, very influenceable kind of part of that funnel. So we do a lot of brand advertising versus a lot of like AdWords click to go buy this. It's much more like display ads and get interested in what we're offering you. Does that make sense? Right? So that's ShareThis. We have a sales force and we sell ads to brands based off of the interests of the people who use the ShareThis widget. There's a lot more to it, but that's at a high level what we do. And then one other thing that I'll show you is it's not just about advertising for us. So we actually have this ShareThis .com/rocketship. So I'm going to put this in. This is our developer recruiting page. So this, let me put all these in this format. Here, this is just all links for you guys. So this is, when we're trying to recruit developers, like every startup is trying to do, we send them to this page that tells them more about us. So we have, we try to do a lot of content capture of subject matter expertise, and then we have these infographics. So we do a lot. We create a lot of infographics and reporting based off of what we know about people's actions. So like for the Super Bowl, we had an infographic showing who the most social players were. Yeah. Yes. And what brands did the best and stuff like that. So there's a lot that we do around that as well. So let's share this. Does that make sense to you guys? Any questions about? Yeah.
Would like Facebook and other social media companies pay for you to direct viewers to them?
Yeah. So you guys all heard the question. Does Facebook or those guys, do they pay us? I wish they paid us. They don't pay us. We are like a distributed social platform, so we sit on top of those guys, and we send them traffic. But we have a very kind of close positive relationship with them, but we're also a little bit removed. Like we don't want to prefer one social platform over others. I'll give you an example. Pinterest is on fire. Like Pinterest is powering more sharing than email now. And 2 years ago, they were hardly on a blip on the map. So like, we never know who the next big social platform is, and we want to be very agnostic about that. So no, they don't pay us, and we don't ask to be paid, but we try to be agnostic, I think is the way that I would answer that. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Will you guys target more women? Like most of your analysis will be more based on women because women tend to share more things, while men just tend to look at things.
Hold on, we're getting into a gender battle here.
That's my assumption. I'm not sure.
So the assumption is, do women share more things? We actually don't see that women share more things, but we do see that it's very much based on category. So and platform. So for example, and like moms, like we had a moms sharing study. So did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Moms sharing. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yep, here we go. I'll put a link to this as well in our HackPad doc. Moms sharing study. So for example, we did this whole report about how social moms are, and what we found was moms are like 3 times, I think it was like 3 times as social. Yeah, like here we go. It's not going to be too easy to see this because it's small, but we found that moms are very social. right? So it tends, it's a subset of women, but it tends to be very category based. And like on Pinterest, there's a lot more women than there are men. But we don't see overall that moms are more social, or that women are more social than men. But we do see these very interesting kind of subset trends. Other questions? Yeah.
So then how do you generate revenue?
All right, how do we generate revenue? So in the example that I gave you before, let's just use a simpler example, cars. You share an article with me about a car using the ShareThis widget, right? When you share that article, we drop a cookie on your browser and we say you like automotive more than the average person. When I click back in to read that article, based on that ShareThis also drops a cookie on my browser. Daniel responded to that, so he also likes cars. So now we can build a segment of people that have an above average propensity to respond to car-related content, right? So let's say that's 10 million people. Then we go to Toyota and we say, hey Toyota, guess what? We can reach 10 million people who like cars more than the average person. Toyota says, that sounds great. So they say, I'm going to pay you a $5 CPM. Do you guys know what CPM stands for? Anyone? Anyone want to take a guess? Cost per 1,000 impressions. The M is like the Latin version, right? Cost per 1,000. So Toyota's going to pay $5 for every 1,000 ad impressions that we show. Now, here's the kind of hat trick. We don't have any inventory. How are we going to actually show you that ad? We don't have a way to show you that ad. We go to these RTBs, real-time bidding ad networks, and we find you a week later. Maybe you're on WashingtonPost.com, and Washington Post wants to monetize their inventory, their pages. So Washington Post is using the RTB to show ads. So we find you on WashingtonPost.com a week later, and we show you a Toyota Prius ad, because a week before you shared a car article through our platform. So we
do you track like if I actually click on the ad?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's the CTR, the click-through rate. That tends to be a metric of performance. So we can say, hey Toyota, look how this campaign performed at an above average CTR. So advertise more with us, which they do. Right? Yes.
ShareThis doing anything? I know like the federal government has had talks about making cookies opt-in versus opt-out. Has ShareThis done anything to kind of combat that issue, as it could hurt the business model?
Right. So this is a hot topic for us. You know, cookies are something that make the general public nervous, right? Like, what do you know about me, and why do you know it? So there's a couple of things there. Number one, we don't want to know any PII. We don't want to know personally identifiable information, because that gets us to a place where we have to be much more careful when there's PII, so we'd rather just not know it. So our position is like, we just want to know what your interests are. We don't care who you are. We just want to know what your interests are. So we can never tie it back to you as a person. We just know that there's somebody that likes cars, right? So A. But B, the reality is that cookies are going away. It's just, if you look at the long-term macro trends, cookies are going away. So we have to start thinking about what does a non-cookie world look like for us? And that's what we're doing. Like, we are literally looking at other solutions that do not require cookies for us to be able to run our business. And like a lot of what those guys and gals are working on in that room is exactly things like that. Not just because cookies are going away on the browser, but because mobile is really, really surging, and there aren't cookies in mobile apps. So this gets into a little bit of a technical discussion, but mobile apps don't have cookies. So how do you track somebody's interests when they're not using a browser? That's another thing that we're working on. So like, unfortunately, I can't tell you the answer to that question because that's part of kind of what we're launching, but that is an initiative that we're working on, right? It's a very important one for us. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to be clear, when they click the Facebook button or Twitter button, is that part of yours as well? The share?
Like right here, for example? Yeah, this is actually on the ShareThis page. So for example, if I wanted to share it to email, I could click this, and ShareThis is powering the share. This is actually, by the way, a pretty interesting thing. It's called dark social. So half of social sharing doesn't happen on Facebook and Twitter. And personally, like, my personal view is that the sharing that happens on social networks is actually pretty spammy. Like, it's not as interesting. So like, let's kind of take a macro step back. Sharing in analog form, like me sharing with you as a human, is a very rich kind of foundational basis of our like societal fabric. Like, I'm a social being, and you are a friend or a family member, and I know you and what your interests are, and I'm going to tell you about something that I know that you're going to like. or I want to share how my day went with you, right? These are all like very powerful things that we do as people. And then you get into the digital realm and it becomes very spammy because I'm not just sharing it to you, I'm sharing it to everybody. And I'm like, oh, I think everybody in my network might like these pink Cadillacs. And it's like, no, everybody doesn't want to see that, right? You might want to see it, but not everybody. So it gets spammy, that devalues the value of a share. So part of what we're really focused on is like, how do we bring that richness of the analog sharing to the digital space? And the part of the answer is dark social, which is that when I share something over email, it tends to be much more intimate. Like I might share with my family a link about a place where we want to go travel. You know, that's a much more intimate and meaningful share, and it typically happens over email. And it's very hard to track. How do you track a share that happens over email? And we have some ways to do that. So yes, we're powering the sharing, but if you're at all interested in this world, you might want to learn more about dark social, because the reason it's called dark social is because it's typically untrackable, right? It's dark. And I've got an article that I can pull up about dark social and put in this hack guide if anybody wants it. Does anybody want it? Let me just do that real fast. I have to go into our knowledge base and dark social. So this is where we share knowledge internally, and here's the link. So I'll say dark social. There it is. You guys can read that later. Yeah.
Now
Joe,
curious.
right?
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys find that, I know when I share things, I've used shared this before, but occasionally I'll just, find it easier to just like copy and paste a link into an email
Yeah,
or two.
totally.
Now,
That's part of dark social, right?
Yeah. So.
You want me to show you how we're dealing with that?
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. I'm going to use the ShareThis website to do it. So you can see, like, I don't know how technical you guys are, which is actually something that I want to talk to you about. Who wants to be a developer in this room? Anybody? I'm assuming if you're in McIntire, maybe you don't, but yeah. Do you code now? What do you code? Like, just tell me a bit about.
I'm a computer science major.
Oh, you are? Sweet.
As well as McIntire, so I know.
Nice. You're embarrassing everybody. That's awesome. Yeah. So if you're not as technical, what's your name?
Brian.
Talk to Brian later. He can tell you more about this, but it's not that hard. So basically, we append a variable on the URL. So that's the share this widget that's appending this variable, right? So when you share this URL later, we are able to tell that it came from that ShareThis powered that or was involved in that, and we can then drop a cookie based off of it. So that's part of what we're doing. Another thing that we're doing is called copy and share, where if you copy some text on the page and then you paste it into an email, you'll see that we add a link to that. So
That's happened to me before.
Right,
yeah.
right. So that's called copy and share, which is something that the publisher can choose to turn on, so that when you copy and paste something, we are adding a URL. That's helping us kind of pull the curtain back on this dark social stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's technically a redirect, right?
Well, it's technically not a redirect because we're not redirecting. We're just appending a variable to the URL.
Does it pass through ShareThis and then go to Wired, like in this case, or like how does it?
No. So that's a good question. So how do we know to drop the cookie? And the answer is because the publisher is running the ShareThis widget. When we see this URL, then we have some JavaScript on like Wired or whatever the publisher is. We are able to see that browser should have a cookie dropped on it based on the content of the page, but we're not actually redirecting through. So it's because the publisher is running our JavaScript to show our widget that we are able to do that cooking. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. Whoever wants to go.
Well, kind of on the same point. So it's like Wired would choose to allow you to put that on the end of the.
Right. That's exactly right.
So what's Wired's incentive to let you do that? On
More distribution. So the reason publishers use the ShareThis widget, publishers only care about two things, right? They want more readership, more distribution, or they want more money. They want to be able to monetize more effectively. That's all that publishers ever care about. The reason that publishers put ShareThis widgets on their sites is because we help them get more distribution of their content, which then gives them more page views, which gives them the ability to monetize more.
So if they have the widget, they automatically have the end of the thing at the end of the URL.
They can choose to enable it or not. So like, for example, I think this is, so like these guys are using ShareThis for, I'm pretty sure, let me just look at a piece of content. So I can pull one up. Might have the wrong. Let's see. Shop Hershey's. I think. Yeah, Hershey's store. So here's one.
And if you don't see the share this logo and you just see like share to Facebook or something, is that Facebook's own?
It could be share this each. So like here, for example, Hershey's is using share this, right? But they're not. They don't have the share this logo. Well, yeah, they actually do. But they can choose. The publisher can choose whether or not to show the share this icon when they are powering the share. We give them a bunch of different options. So it's up to them to choose if they want to use copy and share, which is part of the functionality, to kind of uncover the dark social piece. It basically, we're always trying to help increase distribution, right? Yeah.
So, I know Google uses like targeted ads just based on things I search. So why are people using, I guess, because I don't necessarily share things, so why are people using that versus something like just share?
So let's separate, I think there's a couple themes here, so let's separate them out. So there's like retargeting, for example, which is a type of advertising. So like if you go to like this site and then you leave, you might see a Hershey's ad somewhere across the web.
Yeah.
That's called retargeting, right? That's like basically when you go to a page, that publisher or that brand is dropping a pixel and then using an ad platform to bring you back. And Share This does that, but it's not really our bread and butter. Like that's more further down the funnel. We're better further up in the interest space. That's very intent driven. So I heard you talking about like the retargeting piece.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
So that does exist. It's a type of advertising. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with social or sharing.
Yeah,
Right.
I just don't understand how it's farther down the line than to Share This.
So when you share, like if you share an article about a car, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily ready to buy a car, right? You might have just seen like Toyota Prius. You're like, oh my God, this is a really cool car, and you share it with somebody. That doesn't mean that you're going to go out tomorrow and buy one. But if you search on Google, like buy Toyota Prius, it probably means that you're in the market to buy a Toyota Prius, and you want to find a dealer that's nearby. So that's this intent funnel, right? Like if I'm actually actively searching, or if I go to the Toyota website and I'm like specking a car out on the site, I'm much more likely to actually be purchasing one. So Toyota wants to show you an ad. So if you like spec out a car, but then you leave the site, you abandon the site, Toyota's like, oh my God, you were like about to buy this car and you left. Let me try to bring you back. And so they use retargeting to bring you back. That's very intent driven. But if you're just sharing articles about cars, then Toyota just wants to be branding and be like top of mind for you, right? They want to be trying to convince you to consider Toyota above other brands. And that's where we're really good, because we can see people that have an interest in cars. It doesn't mean that they're ready to buy a car, but there is, advertising at that level. It tends to be, it's called brand advertising, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long do these ads last? Because like just one example, when I went on Spring Break last year, we went to space for South Broadway, and I was Googling that before Spring Break, but I kept getting those ads even after my Spring Break.
Right, yeah. So I think the next thing that I would share with you guys is advertising still sucks. Like it's still really, really, we're in the dark ages of like really actually being able to do this stuff effectively. Which just really sucks, because when an ad is really relevant, it's awesome. Like I don't know if any of you guys like BMW cars, but if you remember this, there was like a series of like mini like BMW YouTube video, like 10-minute long like stories about BMW cars where like Clive Owen was like the hero. Did you guys ever see these? It was a really effective branding campaign for BMW, and anybody who likes BMW is going to be like all over it. Let me see if I can find one. BMW commercials. So like this was, so there's actually a Wikipedia page about how it was very effective. I'm just gonna BMW the hire. So these were all commercials about Clive Owen, and like they were awesome commercials. Like they were short films that different directors did. And look, there's an ad on top of the ad. Cool. Wait for a second. Okay. So like, to me, this was a really effective ad, right? There's like Madonna's in this thing. Clive Owen is driving a BMW. It's basically a story, right? It's like a 6-minute commercial. But as a BMW fanatic, I love these. I watched each one of them. That to me is like the epitome of advertising. We are very far from that. Like right now today you get retargeted on stuff after you've bought the product. It's like, really, I already bought it. Like, why are you still showing me shoes? I already bought those shoes. You decided. So there's a lot of room for innovation. There's a lot that could be done better. And one of the reasons that we are really passionate about interests and sharing is because when you can make an ad more relevant, it doesn't feel like an ad, and that's really what we're trying to do. So we're trying, but there's so much more to do. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. If you guys want to get into this business, A, you probably shouldn't because it's a hard business. But B, if you're really passionate about media and advertising, there's a lot of room for innovation. Okay, other questions?
One question, very similar to like what you have said, is that do you think that like some video like this is also based on category? Because I also know that like one of the shampoo brand in China called Rejoice also made like a story of like YouTube story about their brand and something, but it turns out not being like so successful because it's like a consumer product that you don't spend like that much money, spend that much time trying to find the shampoo instead of buying a car.
I don't know. I mean, this gets into a lot of the psychology of the human brain. Like, I would give you a counterexample to that, which is, did you guys see those Old Spice ads?
Yeah.
Right? Those were super effective. And that was also a CPG, consumer packaged good product. So I think it might have more to do with the content and the relevance to the user than what the actual product is. I mean, I don't know the answer, but I guess I would just give you that counterpoint, which is that those ads were very effective. So I don't know. I don't know the answer. Okay, let me go ahead and ask, and I'll look at what else we've got on the agenda here.
Yeah, I mean, going back to tracking the users and cookies, how long do you track a certain user? So like you got data on Joe.
30 days. We have 30-day cookies. So we just look at interest in the past 30 days.
Okay, so after that, he's gone, right?
So this is an interesting question, right? Like, why not keep data about somebody forever? And the answer is actually a little more complex than you think. Like, part of it is around privacy, and part of it is just around, we have so much data. Like, we process 1 billion signals a day. Like, and that's very expensive to do. So the question is, if we did that for 90 days, would it make a material difference? If we did it for 180 days, like, where do you stop? So the answer is, it probably would make a difference if we had the last 10 years of interest-based history on you. But at the same time, where we're focused as a business right now is really optimizing what we can do with your interest today. And if anything, we're even going more real time. Like, interests tend to be very temporal. Like, I'm interested in this car today, but tomorrow I might not be. But I am right now, right? Like, our interests shift. Like, we're all just basically like 1,000 interests that are always shifting, right? Like, I really want to get more into snowboarding, so I'm interested in that this winter, but in the summertime I'm not going to be thinking about it. So if anything, we're actually moving the other direction, where we're trying to be very, very quick. It's called RTM, real-time marketing. We're trying to be very fast about when you show a social signal that we can target you as something that's relevant right now. So yeah, it's an interesting, it's all about priorities, right? Everything, there's a cost to everything. So we could try to be better about knowing the last 90 days, but then that would keep us from being able to be better about knowing what you're doing right now. And we've chosen to be better about knowing what you're doing right now. Okay, I'll talk about the trademark thing, and then we'll talk about some of the other stuff. So yeah, we originally came up with this sharing trademark, I think back in 2006 or 2007, the sharing icon. We trademarked it. But as a startup, again, it's all about priorities, and there's a cost to everything, right? We spent a lot of time building our business and not as much time defending that trademark. And it's also a little bit like dancing with an elephant. So like, if YouTube is using our sharing icon, but they're not actually using ShareThis to power the sharing, and we're relying on a company like Google for part of our ads business, how exactly do you have that conversation with them in a way that furthers your interests without without causing more trouble than it solves? So it's a very complex thing for us as a startup to deal with. So yeah, we're issuing takedown letters to whenever we see somebody using the icon without permission, we issue a takedown letter. But we're also, again, it's just about cost and prioritization. Like, where do you choose to prioritize that fight? Is it more important to win that battle, or is there actually a benefit when, when people see the icon and recognize it and know that it's ShareThis, that's a benefit to us. We need to control that trademark, but we don't necessarily want to keep it from showing up anywhere. So it's a complicated thing.
You consider creating another logo?
We've talked about it, and there's a cost to that too, right? Like this is a very recognized sharing icon, and it defines our entire business. So yeah, we could create an entirely new one. That would be a very expensive thing to do. Is it more expensive than defending the current trademark? We've decided that it is more expensive, so we haven't done it, but we've talked about it. All right, so efficiency tips are at the bottom. Where do you find your inspiration? How you go about into a business venture? What did you learn in college that prepared you? So let me kind of let me bundle like these, for example, and this one together, okay? And I'll kind of just talk about entrepreneurship generally, if that sounds good. So no, I've never done anything with my brother. It's super interesting. We are both very passionate about startups, and we are very close. It's great that we're both out here, but we try to like not do too much business stuff together because we don't want to kind of ruin the family dynamic. So I think we both kind of mentor and advise each other more, which is great. It's awesome to have a brother who's in the space. I guess the thing that I would say is that being an entrepreneur gets romanticized as being awesome. It's actually oftentimes pretty terrible. And I'll tell you why it's so terrible. So first of all, everybody thinks you're crazy, because if they didn't think you're crazy, there'd already be somebody doing it. So by definition, when you're an entrepreneur, people think that like, why are you doing that? That's dumb. And it's like hard to see that looking backwards. Do you guys know who Paul Graham is? You guys been hearing about Y Combinator? Yeah? So there's a great article by Paul Graham. He's the founder of YC, or Y Combinator. He actually has some awesome essays, which I'll link to. You're nodding. Have you read these essays? Yeah. Did you think they were awesome?
Yeah, they were very different. They were really refreshing.
Okay, yeah. So I'll put Paul Graham's essays. I'm gonna put this at the top because if there's only one thing that you guys do after this, you should read these Paul's essays. And one of them is called Black Swan Farming. So Black Swan Farming is about this topic specifically, and so let's just read this paragraph right here. History tends to get rewritten by big successes so that in retrospect it seems obvious they were going to make it big. For that reason, one of my most valuable memories is how lame Facebook sounded to me when I first heard about it. A site for college students to waste time, it seemed like the perfect bad idea. A site for a niche market with no money to do something that didn't matter. Right? Seriously, like, so actually Paul's whole kind of message in these essays is that there's this Venn diagram, and the Venn diagram is billion-dollar exits is one circle, and the other circle is bad ideas. And the intersection is where the billion-dollar exits come from, meaning not every bad idea is a billion-dollar exit, but in order to have a billion-dollar exit, it must, by definition, look like a bad idea to start. And the reason is that all the good ideas people are already working on, there's more competition for. Airbnb is another great example. Airbnb, do you guys know Airbnb, right? Had a really hard time raising their first round. Have you guys heard about this? They had to make like, let me see if I can find Captain O's, I think is what it was called. We'll just see if this works. So Airbnb, yep, here we go. Captain McCain's and Obama O's. Airbnb had to make this cereal to fund their startup because they were having such a hard time raising venture capital. So this was during the election, and they actually, here we go, you can read this right here, right? Seems like a great idea today, but they went up and down Sand Hill Road to talk to VCs in Silicon Valley, and they had a hard time getting funding because it seemed like such a bad idea. And so I think like one message that I want to leave you guys with is look for those bad ideas, but look for the ones that have a huge potential market where you can actually create differentiation, right? That's, and I actually, I did a talk about this. Let me see, focus. A lot of my stuff is about focus, but there was let me think. I might not be able to find it easily for you guys. Let me just see. I'll just look for a second. Yeah. I'm not going to keep looking, but I did a talk about kind of this black swan farming concept. But for now, I would say just read PG's essays. You know, they're awesome. If you really want to be an entrepreneur, it's a great place to start.
But I guess it's like if it has great potential, great market, like big potential, big market, how is it
a bad idea? And that's the thing, right? That's like the thing that blows your mind is like, why couldn't Airbnb get funding? Why did Facebook seem like such a bad idea? It's so obvious that it was a good idea, but it was a bad idea. That's go home and think about that for a while. All right, other kind of thought. Let's stick on the entrepreneurship track a bit. Let me see. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the thing that your brother brought up, that was something that really struck me since I've tried to start my business, is kind of this trough of sorrow, where it's a period of time where you're not being successful. I'm wondering, in your own experience, where that was and how do you approach it?
So have you guys all heard about this, or did you see it? Have you seen it? This is a great picture of it. So this is, this is absolutely true. Here's what tends to happen when you're starting a business, especially out here in the Valley. You kind of, you start with this awesome spike, you launch on TechCrunch. You know, there's some time here where you're like heads down trying to make something, right? Have this awesome spike, novelty wears off. This is the trough of sorrow what's your name?
Matt.
That Matt's talking about, where you're just like, oh my God, it's a terrible idea, it's never gonna work. Crash of ineptitude. Then you have these wiggles of false hope where you're like, I've got it, no, we don't quite yet have product market fit. And then you actually, have this curve where you see some success. And this absolutely happens. So a couple thoughts about this. One, you guys know who Mark Andreessen is, I assume, right? So Mark Andreessen, product market fit, has an awesome blog about finding product market fit. Here it is. So I'm going to, this is the, this might actually be the #1 thing, product market fit. This is, I try to prioritize every list I make, right? The most important stuff is always at the top. So, because we never have enough time to read everything. So yeah, read this one first. Basically, what Mark Andreessen is saying is product market fit is all that matters, and until you find product market fit, you haven't succeeded. And keep trying to find it. And that's what that trial of sorrow is. It's like, it's the process of finding product market fit. And a lot of times we think we know what it is, but we actually don't. And so the real danger here is to be very closed off with your ideas. To be a little bit crass here, I wrote a blog called Ideas Are Like Sperm, which I'll post here for you guys. So here you go. So basically people are like, oh, I've got this great idea, and I'm not going to actually show you the blog, you can read it later, but it's like, I've got this great idea, I don't want to tell anybody about it. It's so good, someone's going to steal it. And I'm like, okay, if you think your idea is so good, go sell it to somebody. See how much someone's going to pay you for it. Then you can save yourself the trouble of actually starting a business and that trial of sorrow and all that crap that goes with it. So if your idea really is that good, try to sell it. See if you can get $1 for it. I bet you won't be able to. So that's A. But B, in order for you to find that product market fit, it's all about the execution. Execution is what matters, and you're probably going to pivot a couple times anyway from that original idea. So get it out there early, create an MVP early. Do you guys know what an MVP is?
Market value proposition.
Nope.
Minimum viable product.
Minimum viable product. Create a minimum viable product. So, all right, Brian, what is a minimum viable product? How would you define it?
So the most basic form of the application or whatever you're building that could be used by users.
Yeah, the most basic form. Let me see if I can find. So, for example, I did this blog on ghetto testing. Let me see if I can find it. So, there's a little bit that might be here about it. Try this. Okay, so I'm gonna just put this here. We'll put this down a little bit more. Ghetto testing. Actually, I'll just make these all subpoints. This one. So, like for example, let's say that you want to start a business. The thing that I think most of us would do first is, we try to figure out a name, and then once we figure out a name, maybe we try to figure out like a version of that product. If it's software, maybe we create some of that software. We wouldn't want to ship it until it's like perfect. I want to propose a different approach to you, which is called ghetto testing, and that is where you buy AdWords to look to see what the market tells you the demand is. So like, let's say that I wanted to make a new shampoo, and I'm trying to decide what I should call that new shampoo. You could literally put ads up on Google, on AdWords, with different names for that shampoo. and you could see which one do people click on the most, right? That shows you which name is best. You're using data to tell you. Now, when they click on that ad, where do they go? It doesn't matter. You're just trying to see which one they click on most. Have it go to a form that says, I'm thinking about making a new shampoo. Give me your name and email address if you want to learn more about it when I launch it, right? I mean, that doesn't matter. You're ghetto testing. You're using AdWords to express demand for you. So I really want to kind of drive this MVP concept home, which is like, you know, launch early and often, and don't be afraid to do that. I've got another blog that I'll share with you guys, which is about, I think it's just launch. I want to show you guys something. Here it is. So there's this one. So just launch it. So does this site look at all familiar? This was Amazon.com's first version of their website. Seriously, this was live. This was it. This was Amazon.com right here. Here is what Twitter looked like when it first launched, right here. This was Twitter. First public version. Here's YouTube when it first launched. Isn't that crazy? Right? So like these are these billion-dollar companies today, but this is what they look like when they first launched. Here's one, this is a startup that I've been following called Criticism. When I was talking to these guys 3 years ago, this is what their startup looked like. It was like 5 guys. Now, this is what their startup looks like after, you know, some number of millions of dollars of funding, but they launched with this, right? A little cute little, I don't even know what that is. Is that a gopher? I can't tell. He's very happy though, that's for sure. Okay, so we've got maybe just a couple more minutes. I don't want to keep you guys, and I have to get back to work and do my real job. Let's see what we've gotten through so far. So we talked about this. We've been talking about entrepreneurism a little bit. Just specifically for college, let me talk about McIntire. So, you know, when I was in McIntire, everybody went the consulting or investment banking route. Like everybody basically shut up to New York. That was like the path. I was like the weird guy that didn't do that. But I'll tell you what McIntire is amazing at is just preparing you for business. Like when I went to work for GE, I was in Crotonville, they have this like session with all these TLP people, basically the fast track management people. And like nobody in that room knew what a SWOT analysis was. Now I don't know, I'm assuming you guys probably know what a SWOT analysis is because I know when I was at McIntire I sure did. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that nobody, like literally it was a room of 200 people and it was 2 of us that raised our hands. And I was like, wow, that's when I realized McIntire was amazing. So, you know, being really, this sounds super stupid, but like just being really good at Excel. Like even the dumbest stuff like that, you're not going to believe how many people, you're going to go out into the workforce and be like, really? You don't know like keyword shortcuts in Excel or how to calculate formulas? It's just crazy. So McIntire is just amazing at that kind of strategic thinking and business mind. The thing that I would encourage you guys to do is to think about how you can apply that, especially with startups, in a really high velocity way. Becoming a developer, a programmer, is one way to do that because you can code up these MVPs yourself. You don't have to rely on somebody else to do it. That's an incredibly valuable skill. So I would really encourage you guys, if you have any inkling in wanting to try to learn to be a developer at any level, whether it's just basic HTML, you know, PHP, maybe some object-oriented programming, maybe like Xcode, for example, to be able to code for iOS, which is the iPhone. Learn that stuff. I promise you it will pay dividends. And then also don't be afraid to just try things and be entrepreneurs because it's going to look like a bad idea. That's the other thing, right? All right, the last thing I'll show you is some efficiency tips. So I consider a computer to be like an instrument. Like my perspective is, if I'm going to be in front of this box all day long, I want to be able to use it efficiently. So in order to do that, there's a couple things that I do. I actually wrote a blog about this, surprisingly, right? Called Instrument. Go.danielodie.com/instrument. So I'll put that here. So you can kind of read all of these efficiency tips that I have. But I'll just give you an example of one of them. There's something called Cloud App, right? So Cloud App, I'm literally going to press Shift-Command-D on my computer. Do you see how this is now a little crosshair? And maybe I just want to share this, for example, with Dave. Dave wasn't here, but I want to be able to, Dave, right? Tom, I'm sorry, Dave, Tom, right? Okay, with Tom. So Tom wasn't here, I want to share that with him. I just took a screenshot of it. Cloud App now has uploaded that screenshot to the cloud, created a URL of it, and now I have a screenshot of what that text was. Makes it super easy to share knowledge back and forth, right? I can literally just do Command D. Like I'm just like, oh, like that icon isn't quite right. I just do that. You can see it, cloud turns blue. There it is. Bam. I've got the icon that I can send to a developer or to a designer and be like, that's not quite right. So Cloud App is a fantastic tool. That's one of the ones that I talk about on this blog, this Cloud App. Another one is Text Expander. So with Text Expander, let's say that I'm sending the same email. I'm just going to...
He's using Alfred at the same time.
I'm using Alfred as well. Yeah, you know Alfred. Awesome. Let's say that I'm sending the same email to 20 people, right? So let me open up Text Expander, and I'm going to create a new snippet is what it's called. And let's say that I wanted to email all of you guys afterwards. So I might say, comma, great to see you today, DROdio. And then what I do is I can insert a variable. So I'm going to insert a single line field called name. And now I'm going to give it an abbreviation like comma MC for McIntire. It doesn't matter what the abbreviation is. So now I'm in text edit, but let's just say that I was in my email. I can say comma MC, pops up Tom, enter, there's my email. Right? I can create snippets for anything that I do on a regular basis. So I also use Text Expander. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I say comma I. That pops up go.danielodu.com. Comma ST pops up go.sharethis.com. So I use Text Expander a lot to just save from typing the same thing over and over and over again. So that's another tool that I use is Text Expander. Alfred, Dave saw me using Alfred. But you're the one that said it, right? Yeah. And there's others, ones that you probably have heard about, like Dropbox. Also, iCopy. I have the last couple hundred things that I've copied and pasted. Like, have you ever copied something, then pasted, then you got to go copy something else and go paste that? I just copy, and then I can paste them all at once. So there's like 1,000 small little things. So I believe you can only improve what you can measure. So if you guys want to see how fast you are, you're like, oh, I'm already fast. If you think you've got some chops here, you can go to this URL, GeekSpeed. And I have a GeekSpeed challenge. Let me go back to the hackpad here and put this link in. F1 GeekSpeed challenge. I've got a leaderboard where basically you do a series of tasks and then you see who can get it done most quickly. So the winner did the series of tasks in 31 seconds, and that series of tasks is things like start recording, open a browser, open these 3 websites, then do other stuff basically. So think of it like a race course for geeks. So let me just put that in here. You can, and if you do it, I will put you up on the leaderboard. Okay, so you can see how you guys do. Let me just put this in as one of the GeekSpeed challenge.
Curious, do you read Lifehacker?
Yeah. Wait, Lifehacker or Hacker News? I read both.
I read Lifehacker.
Yeah. So there's actually I'm going to make this the #1 thing. Okay? Great last thing. So Lifehacker's great. I love it. Like, yes, I identify with the Lifehacker mentality. However, you made me think, Joe, of something else, which is called Hacker News. Who here knows about Hacker News? Brian does. Okay, I'm not surprised. So I would really encourage you guys to start your mornings with Hacker News. Do you want to explain, how would you explain what Hacker News is?
I mean, it's kind of like a Reddit because there's comments and everything, but it's just news aggregator of things that would interest you if you're into hacking or really technology in general.
Yeah, exactly. So not only this, but Tom and Dave, like as McIntire, I would encourage the class to read Hacker News. So here's what happens. Geeks post stories to Hacker News. Anybody can post. Like, you can submit a story right now, right? I could submit anything. Something that you read, something you created, it doesn't matter what it is. Then Hacker News has an algorithm which is basically points divided by time. So if a lot of people vote a story up, like I'll vote, Mt. Gox, this story up. I just voted that story up with me as one person. You can see that there's points, like 148 points, 27 points, 25 points, 130 points. So if something gets a lot of points in a short amount of time, it'll rise up to the front page. If it just consistently gets a lot of points over time, it'll stay on the front page. So the front page of Hacker News is the most interesting stuff to geeks as defined by the group at any point in time. And they can go from like, really technical to just really interesting. Like you guys know about the whole Bitcoin thing that's happening, So that's very interesting to the Silicon Valley geek community. It tends to be largely out here that people use this. Why good managers are so rare, an HBR, Harvard Business Review article. I mean, it really spans the gamut of like super technical to just interesting business stuff. But it'll really plug you into kind of what's trending, what's hot, what technologies do you need to know about, what are some opportunities or things that are happening. A lot of the Y Combinator companies will look for new hires on here. Well, they'll say that they're posting a job. So I really would encourage you guys. You'll get you'll get addicted to it if you spend 10 minutes a day for like a week. You'll just get addicted to doing this all the time. And that's great. It's a really great way to just stay in the loop and get more in the loop. Because the reality is in Charlottesville, you're pretty disconnected from what's happening out there. So it's a bit of a way to be more connected and more plugged in. Okay, was that helpful? Yeah. Valuable, useful? Awesome. So there's a video of this. I'll post it on my blog, right? And I'll also post the HackPad link on my blog. So you can share that with anybody back in McIntire or your friends or anybody you want. You can just go back and look at the video to go back and be like, how did he do that keyboard thing? It's on the video, right? So, and good luck. I'd love to keep in touch. I really prioritize my blog. So if you want to have a conversation with me, yes, you can email me, absolutely. But if you post a comment on my blog, I will really prioritize an answer because it's helping build knowledge for the community. So if you really want to like interact via my blog, I love that, and I'll prioritize really spending time to have conversations there. So, cool. All right, thanks for coming out. And we have some swag for you guys if you want it. So you probably your suitcases are like twice as heavy as what you got here, I'm sure. With everybody, but go ahead and grab whatever you want back there.